with us.
We had Jerry McNamara on last hour, and we're pleased to be joined by Roosevelt Bouie as we kick off hour number 2 here. And Rosie, you got a special mention, and Coach got a little choked up when he mentioned your name. What was that day? What was that ceremony like for you personally?
Well, guys, it was really emotional, but it was also great seeing all my other teammates. I saw Leo Routens and Marty Burns, who I hadn't seen. Marty Burns and I go way back. We even played we played against one another for 3 or 4 years in Italy. Same thing with Leo. It was great, but I was not expecting it. It was. I remember when I first ran into Coach. He was 30 years old, and I was 16. And he came through. I was at basketball camp, Syracuse basketball camp, but he came through walking. He just looked like he just got off the golf course. Had on a polo, some plaid shorts, and a $40 pair of leather Converse, and he was walking on the back of them like slippers. And I just looked at him. I was like, "Wow, that's." Whew. And then throughout the camp there, it was very easy to realize that he knew basketball like inside and out. It's just after a few conversations while we were playing, and just his low key, the way that he talked to me, like even when I was playing, he never yelled. The funniest thing that I saw was when I came back from having played in Europe for 13, 14 years. I came back and I went to practice, and he was yelling at everybody. I was like, "That's so funny! I'd never seen him yell before." Other than that, other than that, referees.
You know, you and Louis Orr came in together, and everybody talks about Pearl and how Pearl, created the Big East, but you guys created the Jim Boeheim era of basketball. What maybe for a generation of fans, you could explain what it was like in basketball back then, and maybe give a little brief synopsis of what Louis Orr was like as a player also.
Well, I'll start off with we come into basketball. We come into the arena. Everybody's we don't know anything about anyone. We're coming to our first practices, and we come to get our lockers. And they got these little there's 2 lockers. All the lockers are taken except for these 2 lockers in the corner. And so Louis and I took those 2 lockers. He's kind of soft-spoken because we knew that we were going to be basically, Coach said, I may not be the best coach in the country, but you guys are going to be the team that's in the best shape in the country. So we knew that we were in for a marathon run at practice, so it was kind of quiet. I was very respectful. And so we go out to practice with Louis, and we're running miles and miles. Had to run a mile under 6 minutes, and I thought I could run pretty good for a big guy. I was tipping the scales at about 190 pounds. I was 7 feet tall. I told everybody I was 6'11" because it wasn't cool back then to be 7 feet because you're real slow and lethargic. So I was like, no, I'm 6'11" and 3/4. So it just kind of stuck. But I was tipping that scale at 190 with rocks in my pocket, and then I see Louis, and he was kind of slender, so I was feeling like, oh, I'm a horse. I'm real big and strong. We go out there to run, and every single one of our running drills, I'm like in my head, I'm like, I know I can run. I could run 40 minutes. That's all we did. We're a fast breaking team in high school. We're 65-1 at Kendall when I came into Syracuse, and we'd won 44 games in a row. So I was like, hey, I'm a running guy. I run with soccer players that are like 6'3", 6'4", so I know I can run out here. And every single running drill, I finished behind Louis. And I was like, okay, something's going on here. I was like, this kid is tough as nails. And even when we played against one another in practice, everybody talks about how thin he is, but I have never missed more blockouts and fallen down because he would turn sideways and sidestep, and you'd miss him completely. He knew how to play with his advantages. And as far as I was concerned, so I came out there and I looked at the other guys on the floor. There was Billy Keys and Reggie Powell and Bobby Parker, and all these guys were tipping the scale at like 230, 235 pounds. And so we get to practice and we start running. and I started noticing all these big guys they're getting tired. They're sucking wind, and I was like, I said my prayers. I said, thank you, Jesus, because from now on you can't hit what you can't catch. And there were the practices. So we walk into the gym. There's not a chair in the entire gym anywhere. There never were any chairs because they said if you need to sit down, you're not in good enough shape, so you need to run some more. So there was never any chairs, and there was a drinking fountain that was about 15 feet off the end of the court, and you could only drink when coach called your name out. Okay, he would call your name out after a either 2-on-3 or 3-on-2 or 2-on fast break where you're at the opposite end of the court. He calls your name out, and you have about 12 seconds to drink. So you have to sprint the full length of the court, then 15 feet because the water fountain's off the court, and they had these little cups that were about 2.5 ounces. And then when you got a drink, you had about 12 seconds, and you had to get back on the court on defense. So it was, I'm in a day off. So I'm from Kendall, New York, which is 2 hours from Syracuse. We had a holiday. A day off for us was, so for Christmas, if we're going to have, we're going to have a day off for Thanksgiving, say, we would practice the day before Thanksgiving at 8:00 in the morning. Then he'd give us time off, and our time off was we had to be back the next day at 8:00. We'd practice at night. So instead of practicing the regular at 3:40, he'd move it up so you practice early in the morning. And a day off was, I came home 3 times a year, not 3 days, 3 times. So
yeah, it's changed a lot, Rosie, since you started.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. And, we had Jerry on last hour, Rosie, and, he talked about family, and he talked about that it didn't really hit him how big this event was on Saturday until after they spoke to the team following the game, and he saw all the former players lined up in the tunnel, and you were one of those former players, and you, as Paulie said, you helped get this family started, way back when you and Louis Orr came here. What does that basketball family mean to you? That I'm sure you've gotten to know a lot of these guys over the years, and just that camaraderie that you share, this brotherhood, this family that is Syracuse basketball. What does it mean to you?
Well, listen, it means so much to me, specifically because, so as a basketball player, I started playing when I was 14. So I have no fans. I mean, I have no heroes in basketball. Everything that I know about basketball, I love to play. I never followed anybody. I never followed Syracuse. But then as I got older and I came to Syracuse, I loved playing the game. Never watched it. And then after I went to Syracuse, I started watching Syracuse players that came through and would go to the pros. I would come back during the summer when I was in Italy. I would have a few months off. I'd come back home. I always stayed in contact with coaches. Coach Fine was he was the link between all of us because he kept us all connected. Called us on our birthdays. I remember I was going into the finals. So we won the European Championship in 1992, the Copa Quarters, and we were playing against Real Madrid. And I got there and I was like, I need some sneakers. So I called Coach Fine, and the next day a box of 2 pairs of Nikes came, and I was good. So there was always that connection. When Marty Burns came over to play in Italy, after the games, he came over, we'd hook up, we'd talk. Leo Routins and I, we always had, his oldest son, Michael, was born when he was in Rome, and I'm his godfather. So we're all interconnected. By the way, Rudy Hackett came to recruit me when I was at Kendall High School. And I saw this big guy come through the school there, and I was so impressed. Well, fast forward, so I graduated in 1980. In 1982, I'm playing with Rudy Hackett. And 2 years later, his son Daniel is born. So I'm Daniel's godfather. And Daniel right now has won 7 or 8 European League championships. He's a phenomenal player, but he's a little beaner that was born when Rudy and I were playing together. And just not to forget Rudy Hackett. So I played with Rudy Hackett for 3 years. Those 3 years, I shot 67% from the field, 68% from the field, and 69% from the field. And I finished in second place all 3 years behind Rudy, who shot 69. He shot 68, 69, and 70% from the field. So he was phenomenal. And we're all connected. And Wendell Alexis and Rafael Addison, when they came to Europe to play, we would have our games. And once before the game started, so I had about a 3,000 square foot home that I purchased in Italy. And it was right around the corner from where all the teams would stay. They would eat dinner, and 15 minutes after dinner, I get a knock at my door, and Wendell would come there. Any Syracuse player that was in the area would come there, and we'd hang out. We'd have dinner, and their teams would go home. They would stay an extra day, and then I would take them home. So we always, I have no. Syracuse became my extended family. Most of you don't know, but before I came to Syracuse, when I was 16 years old, I lost a little brother to leukemia, Christopher. So, and I have four fantastic sisters. But when I came to Syracuse and I met Lewis, and Lewis and I were kind of a kindred spirit, and Dale Shackelford was like an older brother to me. So, and then Hal Cohen, and then we just when you go to battle and you're with guys and you're trying to make a team and you're going through your trials and tribulations, you get close. You get really close to those guys, and they became my family, as did Derek Coleman and Rafael Edison and Wendell Alexis. He phenomenal player in Europe. He won every championship imaginable. He actually retired when he was 40. So all of these guys, we would spend time with one another. If anybody needed an opportunity to play, we would help out any way we could. It was just there's just stories behind stories. Actually Lewis and I played together for 4 months in Reggio Emilia, and while we were there, we were together from 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd split up at midnight. And for 4 months, it was like the most incredible time that you could imagine. And I would look out for him, he'd look out for me, and it was just, we would all look out for one another. And so, Mick, to bring it to a head, anytime there was a Syracuse player that came anywhere close to us in Europe, and that's not only myself, but Rudy. Rudy Hackett, when I got to Italy, we're living there. Rudy Hackett would cook lunch and dinner for me every day. I went to his house. He's a phenomenal cook. So it's like it's your family for real.
Rosie, I've really enjoyed this walk down memory lane. What a weekend it was inside the Dome, celebrating Jim Boeheim. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts. And be well, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Good seeing you, Paulie.
Yeah, Rosie, and it's funny, at the dinner when Rosie brought up Wendell Alexis, he's a kind of a guy who slips under the radar. Coach Boeheim at the dinner said, if there's one guy in that was ever in this doghouse I ever had, Wendell Alexis got yelled at more than any player in Syracuse history. So there's that. For those that don't know Wendell Alexis.
Oh, yeah.
Rosie, thank you. With that, we're going to take a timeout. We've got one segment where we can take some phone calls, 315-437-7644. And then we've got Tim Leonard joining us as we talk SU women's basketball. It was a special day inside the Dome yesterday for the SU Women DeAsia Fair. We're back after this on ESPN Radio.